Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's event. We're super excited you guys took some time out of your busy day to come and join us. We have a really exciting topic and group of talented data professionals here to talk to you guys today about walking the path to trusted data. So my name is Reed Gusmus, and I am the VP of Marketing here at Profisee. We are super excited to partner with the Harvard Business Review alongside some distinguished data management professionals who are also on this call. And unfortunately, we've had a little bit of a technical glitch, and there's one person who couldn't get a video feed running, but he is here with us today as well. I'll do a quick round of introductions, and then we'll get into today's content. So with us today, we have Mr. Alex Clemente. He is the founding manager and director of the Harvard Business Review Analytics Services. Mr. Aaron Gorham is an enterprise data services manager who works at JR Simplot Company. Mr. Cliff Miller is a distinguished enterprise data architect who works at Domino's. And Mr. Bill O'Kane is a former Gartner analyst and VP and MDM strategist here at Profisee. For those of you who may not be familiar with Profisee, Profisee is a master data management platform that makes it easy to deliver a single, trusted, and complete view of business-critical data across the enterprise. Much like our panel today, we here at Profisee deeply understand now that more than ever, the exceptional phenomenon we're experiencing around the globe, around the growth of data and the problems that are ensuing from it with governance, make it incredibly difficult to have trust in data across the enterprise. And that is one of the reasons why we decided to partner with the Harvard Business Review to produce a survey that had over 343 data executives respond from around the world on how they are solving these challenges and which strategies are most effective. So I'm pretty excited to be joined today with these panelists that took part in shaping the report, and for you to hear directly from them and their recommendations for how they've implemented governance and master data management to really leverage data as a strategic asset. So there is a Q&A section here in the event console. Please feel free to ask your questions throughout the presentation. We will answer them as they come in. And if we do run over time, we'll make sure that someone from our team follows up accordingly with questions. So without further ado, let me share with you all what we're going to be covering today. All right. So here are the individuals who will be on this panel, and we're going to kick it off with Mr. Alex, again, who is the founding managing director at the Harvard Business Review Analytics Services, and he's going to share with you all how this report was developed and detail some of its findings. So without further ado, take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Reed. I'm going to try to share my screen here. There we go. And can you confirm that you are seeing my slides?
Yes, sir.
That's terrific. So thank you for that introduction, Reed. And I'd also like to thank Profisee for sponsoring this body of research. And I'm pleased to share with you the findings of the report titled The Path to Trustworthy Data. Data as a strategic asset has become a business mantra invoked everywhere, from stages of IT conferences to management retreats to executive board meetings. Data is widely recognized as the fuel for innovation and agility, the attributes that many companies see as key to their success or even their survival in a very competitive, evolving business landscape. However, while every executive declares the importance of having high-quality data that can be trusted for making decisions, many admit that their organizations are not taking the most critical steps to ensure that that happens, such as implementing data governance and master data management strategies. This survey, published by Harvard Business Review Analytics Services, recently found that most respondents, some 60%, believe that their organizations are underinvesting in enterprise-wide data strategy, showing that the mantra of strategic data is not yet being put into practice. And so I'm going to share with you the survey results by first taking you through the research objectives. First, we wanted to understand the importance of enterprise data and master data management in business decision-making. We also wanted to know how well organizations rate their performance with their approaches to enterprise data and master data management strategies. And we also wanted to uncover the challenges and the sources of problems with enterprise data and master data management and identify best practices working with enterprise data and MDM. So let me take a moment to share with you the survey methodology. The survey was conducted in the first half of 2021. It was global with 343 respondents, representation from all of the major regions of the world. The audience skewed towards large organizations, and it was primarily an executive and senior level management audience with broad participation across functional areas and also a broad number of industries, as you can see here. And lastly, everyone was screened into the survey based on their knowledge of their organization's data strategy and approach to enterprise data. Now, for the purpose of the survey, we provided some definitions, and I just want to cover them with you here so you'll know, how respondents perceived the questionnaire and then responded to it. So enterprise data is a centralized data that is shared by users throughout an organization, typically across departments and or geographical regions. Data governance is a set of principles and guidelines aimed at ensuring that the company's data is of high quality and consistent across enterprise systems. And master data management is the technical infrastructure and processes that apply data governance principles to ensure consistent and reliable information and relationships across enterprise systems. And the importance of high quality enterprise data trusted for decision making, as we can see here, is not being matched by effort. So we have the combination of two questions. The first is gauging the importance of high quality data. And then the second, which are the two bars at the bottom, is to what degree companies, what effort they're actually putting forth. And as we can see here, importance is actually double, rates double the effort, with fewer than half of organizations saying that they're working hard to ensure that they have high quality data. So obviously that needs to improve. And next, we wanted to know what types of enterprise data are essential to business operations. And we can see that financial, customer, product, and employee data are the leading types of essential enterprise data for operations, and to a somewhat lesser extent, partner data, location data, and asset data. Next, we wanted to know how many types of data are being handled operationally. And we can see that approximately half of organizations are using more than 10 different data types operationally, and another 1/4 are handling 6 to 10 types. So that makes for a lot of variety that has to be managed. And life is only going to get more complex, and as much as the vast majority of organizations, as we can see here, expect the number of data types in operations to only increase. And on top of so much variety, we see a majority of organizations defining their enterprise-wide data strategy as immature. And only 1/10 consider their level of data maturity strategic, and a similar number call theirs proactive. And so on top of the complexity and lack of sophistication, we wanted to know what challenges executives were facing, and they told us inaccurate, incomplete data, data silos, and poor data governance for enterprise data are their top problem sources. Also, inconsistent sources and unclear responsibilities rounded out the top 5 challenges. And sticking here with challenges, on this chart here at the organizational level, we see that poor data culture, a lack of talent and analytical skills, implementation and integration of technology issues. These are the top challenges to enterprise data strategy, followed by a lack of a formalized governance and stakeholder alignment. And so next, we wanted to know what would contribute most to high quality and trust in data. And a majority identified the implementation of data governance strategy and master data management as the most important. And to a lesser degree, but still of importance, are having data audits in place, having a chief data officer, and also leveraging data lakes and warehouses. So next, we wanted to know what systems organizations currently have in place. And we see here cloud platforms, data governance, data lakes, and warehouses lead their enterprise data strategy. And these are followed by master data management, data audit processes, and having data stewards and chief data officers are also prevalent, but in only 1/5 to 1/4 of organizations. As we mentioned in the objectives of the research, that gauging how well organizations rate their progress, only 1 in 10 organizations rate their approach to enterprise data as very effective, and a majority of which say that they're only moderately effective. And only 1 in 5 organizations rate their approach to master data management as very effective, and about half say that they are moderately effective. So obviously, a major opportunity to improve in a majority of organizations. So I'm going to conclude here so that we can move on to our panel discussion with a brief summary of what was just presented. A vast majority of respondents believe enterprise data management is important to decision making. Yet only half as many say that they are making a major effort to ensure its quality. Half of organizations are processing more than 10 types of data, and the vast majority expect the number of types of data will only increase. And nearly 2/3 of organizations define their enterprise strategy as immature. Inaccurate, incomplete data, data silos, poor enterprise data governance are the top sources of problems with enterprise data. Poor data culture, lack of skills, implementing and integrating technologies are at the top of challenges with enterprise data. And lastly, the majority of organizations clearly have more work to do to ensure highly effective approaches to enterprise data and master data management. And so let me see if I can stop sharing. We'd now like to bring Cliff, Aaron, and Bill into the discussion. So I'd like to thank you for your attention thus far, and I'm now going to pass the mic back to Reed, who's going to moderate our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Some really fascinating insights on this report, and we're grateful to have them to share with the community of data professionals and beyond. So, we often find that many people don't struggle to convince business leaders that enterprise data management is crucial to driving business outcomes, but the focus and effort that it would require often keeps many organizations from taking any action, causing them to fall behind in the competitive and ever-changing landscape. So I'd like to open it up to panelists, as Alex said, Mr. Aaron and Mr. Cliff, to get their perspective on their experience in participating in the survey and their thoughts and opinions on the outcomes that Alex just went over. So let me start this off with Aaron. So Aaron, can you briefly just introduce yourself and then tell us a bit more about how you're working with your organization to improve data maturity?
Sure thing. So hi, everybody. My name is Aaron Gorham. I'm the Director of Data Services here at JR Simplot. And in a lot of ways, the company has sort of fallen into moving towards data maturity sort of in spite of itself. So the situation we were at a couple of years ago, we have 31 ERPs or instances of ERPs running across multiple business divisions. And although there was a lot of, it wasn't a free-for-all. There were rules and guidelines around a lot of our data. They're not the same. The data formats are different. It's the things we all know, right? The lengths, the types of characters you can have in these fields, the rules, they were all over the place. And as we were getting ready to go through this conversion process, as most of you know that have been in the data game for a while, the data side of these conversions is the long pole in the tent. And as we were ramping up to get going, it was very clear to my supervisor and I that we weren't going to get there. They were already starting to cut scope on what we were going to be able to do from a data cleanup perspective, and it was rather troubling. And one of the few silver linings out of the pandemic, from my perspective, is it caused that program to go on pause for a little bit. And as we were on pause, and sort of thinking about how we're going to do this, my supervisor came up with a pretty brilliant plan that, frankly, I'm very frustrated and sad that I didn't think of earlier. Is he put together a narrative with the enterprise data governance team, data quality, master data management, which is my team, and our enterprise data management team, to explain to leadership that data is hard. And that sounds silly, but it was one of the most effective things I've ever seen. So we walked through examples of between each of our different disciplines of why this is challenging and what makes this hard, and why when you're under a high intensity situation like a big conversion, at $1.5 million a week burn rate or whatever it is, when you fail to make these decisions and make them correctly, you end up in a worse situation than you were before you did the conversion. So that was a very effective way to get leadership to understand what we needed. While we were on pause, our leadership invested quite a bit of money and time and resources to keep us moving forward before the program started again. So that has been a huge blessing for us, and we've been able to really mature our organization quite rapidly over those years, and really get us thinking more like an enterprise, and get us used to building up the muscles around data governance and making people understand what it means and why it's powerful and beneficial for them to participate. It's getting them to understand data quality and understand, why it matters and what it's going to affect. Lastly, it helps the master data team figure out solutions to make sure that there's the first pass yield of loading data into the system is going to work right the first time. And as you'd imagine, with 31 ERPs, as we had a awful lot of duplicate data within our systems. And to make this work in a singular ERP, we really leveraged Profisee and their golden record capabilities to help us identify which customers are duplicated. We're working on which products are duplicated. It's got an enormous benefit already. The company has seen with some data conversions due to a merger and acquisition. It's much more efficient, effective, and more powerful. And likewise, we're able to leverage some of that consolidation of customer data in particular to help us manage risk in some other areas of our business that we weren't ever able to see before. So, like I said, the company sort of started moving its way more out of necessity than anything else.
Wow, what a story! And then how long was that journey, Aaron, from when you guys sat down, built that narrative, went through the process, implemented technology processes, and kind of built muscles in the organization to solve those problems? How long has that journey been?
It started off about 3 or 4 years ago, as we were getting ready to start that big program. But it really is. We've really been able to build a strong foundation over the last year and a half across all of our disciplines, to where the business understands what we do, they respect what we do. We're able to get a lot of movement. We're getting far more participation than I would have ever expected, and it's been pretty powerful.
That's incredible. I think one of the key messages there, Aaron, was that this is hard, right? Data is hard, and I think it's a journey for most organizations, regardless of their maturity level. So it's good perspective for the audience to think about it from that perspective. Thank you for sharing your story. And, I'd love to get Cliff's perspective on this, as he's been able to prove a tremendous amount of success by mastering and governing Domino's customer data. That includes more than 85 million customer records in their database. It's pretty impressive. This another impressive story as well. So Cliff, could you please just introduce yourself quickly, and then share with us how you and your team have worked to make data management a top priority and get buy-in from your organization for that initiative?
Sure. Afternoon, everybody. My name is Cliff Miller. I work in our Enterprise Information Management team at Domino's Pizza in our technology group. I guess our story with master data and the notion of governance and things like that started 6 going on 7 years ago, really in the customer consumer space. So as Reed said, this for us is an end customer, so not B2B, but really B2C. And we had a deep burning desire to get much more familiar with our customer behaviors, their likes, their dislikes, how they engage with the brand, how they prefer to be marketed to, the offers and things that they like to receive. And so we were trying to wrap our arms around, the volume of information and the volume of customers coming into us every day from a kind of a domestic store, 6,600 stores plus now perspective, day over day over day, all of that information coming in, having to get matched, linked, and to really make sense out of all of that to provide kind of a clear line of sight around each individual consumer and what their patterns look like. And so we headed down that path with Profisee. I would maybe anticipating some of Reed's questions, I would say we're probably on our currently our third iteration of that entity or of that process, which is really for us is never done. We're already working on what I guess I would call the fourth, and for us it really has become about ways that we believe that the information can help set us apart, make us smarter, faster, more nimble, more relevant to all of our end consumers, and really capitalize on it as part of our core IP. I mean, as data has become a lifeblood for a lot of organizations, we find that we are in that same boat. It can be hard, so I sympathize. In listening to what Aaron said, there's a lot of shared struggles across across industries in this space, and it can be tough. But I think when you have a great culture around information and where it can lead you and things it can unlock for you, I think it really opens a lot of doors. And so for us, that's just really evolved, over these last 6 and 7 years around the consumer space. Actually, lended itself to us building out more things in that same platform in other areas that we had never really bought or intended to use the platform for, but it does a really great job in that regard. And it's been an evolution for sure, and one that we see as really an area of continual investment and an effort. So there is no finish line. I know it's a cliche, but for us that's very true.
Yeah, there definitely is never a finish line. I think organizations are always evolving some level of maturity with data management from that perspective. You mentioned culture, Cliff, and I'd love to hear from Aaron on this. And Bill, please jump in as well. But obviously, culture is a big part of doing these things successfully, right? And so over the past years, I think you mentioned 4+ years, Aaron, and then Cliff, you said 6, 7 years. What are some of the pivotal moments inside of your organization from a culture perspective that have allowed you guys to drive success with governance and MDM, if you could think of any?
How about I'll lead off and then let Aaron and the guys go. I think for us, in that first iteration of customer and consumer, we had a lot of back and forth with our business folks in instances where we thought we knew what they wanted. So we went away, IT kind of, formulated something, came up with it, returned, and was like, okay, here you go. Like, this is what you wanted, right? And we looked at the results and we said kind of collectively, well, yeah, this was what it was, and that's pretty good, but we don't really, we want it to be better than that. We want to go beyond where we've been. And so I think that was kind of a watershed moment. It's that empirical data that you look at and go, oh man, that this really isn't where we wanted to be. And so at that point, we sat down with our analytics and insights team and said, okay, so if we're gonna get beyond where we are collectively, how do we all do that together? What are the definitions? What's important? What does success look like? And as soon as we got to that kind of shared understanding, we all said, we're nodding our heads like, yeah, this is what's meaningful. That was at post version 1, so really version 2, that's really what unlocked a lot of potential for us. So I mean, like many things in life, really sitting down, listening to what somebody has to say, and then internalizing that and coming back and saying, okay, now we all have got this shared vision. that was a big step for us.
Yeah, I would imagine driving a common single vision, right? Alignment and defining what success looks like and what's meaningful definitely seems like a pivotal moment for an organization who wants to extract value from business data. What about you, Aaron? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think for us, it was two things. Number one, I mean, somebody asked a question in the chat about, was there any thought about cost savings? And it's like, it's not really, this doesn't really yield cost savings, but it's what you can or can't do with regards to business capability. It doesn't take a whole lot of examples to show how if you're managing your vendor, customer, and product data poorly, just how all those neat things, those pie-in-the-sky things you want to get done will not work because you're back to the same square one of having to wrestle bad data. So that was one big thing. I think the other thing that helped change the culture a lot is we got a couple of big wins quick. So, with our governance team getting pulling together people to start to care about data, give them ownership of the data, let them know that this matters and they've got a voice, and then turning around and being able to, with our customer master data, being able to show them, hey, this is what your data really looks like. Did you know that? Giving them insights on how good, bad, or ugly it is has been very, very powerful for us to help get people's attention and keep them interested and engaged.
Got it. So thank you for sharing, gentlemen. So Bill, you've been in the MDM space for well over a decade, I believe, if that's correct.
Well over.
Yeah. So, and then you spent many, many years as an analyst of Gartner. So you've seen all these different situations and problems throughout the course of your career. So Bill, what advice would you give data professionals on how to justify and prove that the risk of doing nothing far outweighs the time and energy it takes to become a mature, data-driven organization?
That's a great question. It's one of my favorite subjects, as you know. So there's some psychology that goes on here, and I saw this as an analyst, and when we first encounter a lot of our prospects and clients, I'd like to say to them, to be provocative, you're behaving as if you believe, so let's make sure you really believe this, you're behaving as if you believe that the risk of doing nothing either is nil or very, very low. And I'm here to convince you that that's not true. And what the guys here described is situations that made it clear that that was not the case, right away. Wheel falls off the business somewhere, or somebody comes up with something that just can't be done. That's great. If you don't do anything, what the negative version of that is, if you really don't do anything, the risks are twofold. One is you're already collecting technical debt by forcing your business apps to act like MDM tools or data managers. Your CRM systems, your ERPs, your core systems weren't built to do that. They weren't built to manage data. They were built to manage your processes. So the longer you let those go on, trying to do that, and often on the same logical data, in fact, almost always, customers, products, suppliers, what have you, the more debt you're creating, and eventually your business processes are going to stop working, one or more of them. And the answer is going to be, do I really have to clean up all this data? And the answer is yes, and that's a huge debt. The other half of it is something else the guys touched on, is the opportunity cost of net new processes, things that you'd really like to do that you don't do at all. Never mind you do them badly. You can't do them at all. Cross-selling, upselling, things you can do during customer onboarding to assess risk and things like that, new product introduction, and all that. You can't do that at all if your data is not trustworthy usually. And that's what digital transformation is at the end of the day. So when someone says, we want to do digital transformation, I quickly try to divide things up into those categories. What do you do now that's not great, but you do it? And then what are the things, what debt are you incurring by continuing to do the things that way? That's a risk of letting that debt increase. And then the other risk, which is usually more if you can get to it, is the things you'll never be able to do if you leave things alone. And data management is the answer to both of those.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting that I think at the linchpin of this is culture. Bill, what tips would you give organizations about driving culture that lends itself to do things about the problems that we're seeing in the market about incomplete, inaccurate data, silos, poor penetration of governance? How do you think culture impacts that, and what advice would you give from a culture perspective?
So, culture is it depends on what you think culture is. For me, culture is eventually the aggregation of all these factors and what's allowed to go on and what's not allowed to go on in terms of behavior and technical capabilities, as one of the guys said, technical capabilities is part of that. So I had 2 or 3 tricks I used to use with people to kind of shift their thinking a little bit to how this is important, and why they're having trouble maybe justifying it or thinking about it. And one of the basic ones, and you have to get people to see this, IT people especially, is you're making some level of assumption as to how much all your stakeholders understand the value of what this is going to bring, and some of it's going to work and some of it's not. But there are techniques you can use, like I want you to explain to me what you think data management will get you, and don't say the word data. Just as an exercise. Unless we're gonna sell data, then we can do that. But if we're not directly monetizing data, tell me what this is going to do for you, and don't say data. And you want things like, I want customer onboarding to go 4 times faster with 1/10 of the error rate. Very business process and analytics focused metrics. Another one is saying to business stakeholders, what if all these data problems you're complaining about were solved this weekend? What if somehow I could wave a magic wand and whatever you think is the definition of trustworthy data, you had it on Monday, what would you do? And often, that lets people know that, boy, there are a lot of things we should put down on paper. And, that's why we do what we call the business impact roadmap with prospects, is to get them to kind of quantify and prioritize all that, so that there is that discussion of, oh, here's what we're going to get, and here's when we're going to get it, and we're definitely going to get it, and here's how much it's going to cost, here's who's going to use it, and here's what the effect will be. And once you get that, the rest of this, it's never easy. I don't want to say that in front of these guys in particular, but that lowers the risk of failure, is everybody remembers what's going to happen on Monday morning when this stuff starts to kick in. And you don't want the reason to be, when someone comes up to you a year later and says, why are we doing this? If you start saying, I want better data quality, that's going to sound funny at that point. And so you want to think about that, before day one.
So tell me how you're going to solve a business problem without using the word data.
Just as an exercise, I've had, I like to tell, and I'm not kidding, I've almost been physically assaulted by CEOs who really had trouble doing that. But once, because they couldn't. They would always say, I want my customer data to be clean. Oh, there it is again. And then it would go back. But once they finally got it, I've had CEOs say to me, oh, that's what you mean? I got like 50 of those. But those are the things you want to target, and then, make data do that for you. Don't just walk around saying my data is dirty and unclean, because frankly, there's some dirty data you have that probably doesn't ever deserve to be cleaned or warrant being cleaned, because you'll never really get that much value out of it, even if it's clean. You want to separate out the things that will get you the value. And the only way to really do that is to go from that sort of front backwards direction into the data.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for sharing that perspective. So I think we're coming up on 30 minutes into the event, and we typically don't like to run these too long, but there are a few questions that have come through. This one, Cliff, I believe is for you, but Aaron, you could answer this as well. The question is, are you aiming for one master data management system in the company, or multiple systems to support different parts of the company?
So from our perspective, I don't think we approach it as a one-size-has-to-fit-all. In our team, Enterprise Information Management, there's lots of teams inside of our technology organization. This is the platform that we use. We found that it was very performant and capable in the consumer space, and then we extended that capability in other areas where we were doing some things that I think a lot of companies struggle with. There's data sitting over here in this spreadsheet or things like that, that if you get it into a consistent location that's managed and it's cared for and all of those good things, that it becomes way easier to handle, and also provides way more value once you get it, you get your arms around it and can disseminate it, in a logical manner. There's not just one MDM system at Domino's, but it's the one that we're using in our our data and analytics space, if that makes sense.
Got it. And Aaron, I would imagine that's a similar concept for you. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. So we've got really we kind of have our go, like our future world and our current world. So we really rely on Profisee to help us wrangle data across multiple ERPs and other systems. That there's not a really good tool to do that today that's just is open and with an architecture that allows you to kind of build models and whatever you need. So we've got some non-standard models that are very critical to our business that we're going to leverage Profisee for as far as I can tell going forward. But then we also have a master data system we're getting ready to implement for our SAP implementation. It's a natively bound application that we can use to help the authoring process there. So so I think that it makes sense to have multiple MDM systems if you have business cases for it. And I would recommend not trying to square peg and round hole yourself if you try to get to one. There's probably good reasons why you want multiple for different use cases.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'll add, and maybe Bill can jump on this too, is I think one of the keys to think about here is that if you're looking at MDM as a technology to solve business problems, that business problem is going to involve more than one data type, right? If your goal is to upsell, cross-sell into your customer base, you have to understand the product and not just the customer. So that's when multi-domain MDM comes into play, right? And the right tool that has multi-domain capabilities can help you solve different problems across the company and integrate different systems as well. So that's what I would polish off on that. Another question here, guys, is how do you clean up master data when source system owners do not want to help? So all the cleaning is done downstream for reporting. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts on that?
I definitely do, but I'll wait in case anybody else does.
Yeah, I've been in that situation before. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Aaron. I'll wait. I'll go after you.
Okay, thanks. But I've been in that situation before where you're, where that's exactly what happened. It'd take an act of heaven and earth to get a change made to a source system. So what I've done in the past is, especially around reporting and analytics and what I've seen with customer and product marketing, and some of the ways that they can evolve outside of an ERP, you can still master it outside, but you still need to have some level of business ownership to help define how that's going to be, what the rules are for matching, what the rules are for standardization, so that you can evolve that space even without changing the ERPs.
In our scenario is a little bit different. So what we're aggregating is all of the order information from domestic stores. So as you can imagine, that can be very interesting as people place orders either digitally or over the phone or walking into the store. So we actually work with a third-party provider who helps us be smarter than we could be on our own. Because there's times when you can't do everything yourself. You have to realize that there are other folks out there who are in that space and can help you out. And in this instance, it really is a big benefit for us to not only use them to standardize, but also use them to enrich or augment, where we don't necessarily know something about that person. So it can be tough, especially at scale. And that was one of the challenges we had to overcome as a technology team. But once you get that in place, it makes a pretty big difference depending on your data domain.
And there was a question about, and I'll let Bill comment on that last question, but just for clarity, we say data domain, data type, it's interchangeable depending on the circumstance. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, we do that because we have business stakeholder customers that actually call domains data types, and it kind of bleeds into us. But we didn't mean data type in the data modeling sense. I think that's what the question is there. So domain is like a subject area in a data model, but data type in the data modeling or database sense is not what we were talking about. We were using them interchangeably with domain. So I'm going to go back to tie that the question on cleaning up source master data. There's a couple of things there. One is clearly you can implement MDM in sort of coexistence or centralized style to synchronize back to the source systems and actually prevent them from themselves entering any more bad data going forward, even you do or do not clean up the historical data. But I go back to sort of the outcomes. You know, you don't want to clean something up just to clean it. If there are real business problems that are caused by those source systems not having consistent or clean data, those need to be surfaced. And this is where I don't want to create a mountain out of something smaller, but this is where sort of data governance organizations come in, and why the big industry best practices with C-level people on your governance council on the business side, because if they can be presented with real business problems that are caused by the source systems having inconsistent or bad data, and that will be solved by cleaning them up either with MDM or some other, you know, less sophisticated process or technology, then, you know, maybe the people that own those systems should be paid to do it with budget money or otherwise persuaded to, because if there are real business problems and they're saying they don't want to solve them, that's a real issue, right? So again, I would just caution, you know, have real reasons to do it, and get people to back that up. If it's just the fact that it's inconsistent and people don't like that, that's not going to work, especially over the longer term. But again, always bring it back to real business problems that this is causing, and have an entity that can address them across these silos. That's another question I used to get quite a bit is, you know, we have silos because we have silos. You know, how does somebody act across them in the way you're describing? And again, for me, that's the data governance organization. That's part of it. And above the steward level, it's really sort of that C-level executive board or council for governance that should take care of that, because that's how you're going to get the full value out of all this. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, great perspective, guys. I appreciate that, and thank you for the questions here as well. So we're gonna wrap it up here, folks, today. So I want to thank our incredible panelists for their very valuable time today and for their insights, and of course, thank you all for attending and for your valuable time this afternoon or this morning, wherever you might be. Please know that the path to trusted data is on the Profisee website. If you go to the homepage, you can grab that report and download it, and please share it across your friends, your network, your organization. There's a lot of really good statistics in there that might help you on your journey to improve data maturity and to driving business results with trusted data. So with that, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you guys again soon. Until next time, take care.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, guys.